In a forest northeast of Berlin stood Carinhall, the enormous country estate of Hermann Göring. Its rooms were filled with paintings, sculpture, tapestries, furniture, and decorative objects. To visitors, the collection presented Göring as a wealthy patron of European culture. But behind many of these objects stood a different history. Jewish families had been forced from their homes, collectors had lost legal control of their property, museums and private collections had been stripped across occupied Europe. Carinhall displayed the result as luxury. The walls showed beauty. They concealed persecution. Hermann Göring was not an ordinary art collector. He was one of the most powerful officials in Nazi Germany. He commanded the Luftwaffe, controlled major parts of the German economy, and played a central role in the Nazi system of persecution and war. His authority gave him access to people, money, and property unavailable to any normal buyer. He filled his estates with art, jewelry, and valuable objects obtained through purchases, political influence, corruption, and looting. Not every item in his possession had been stolen in the same way. Some had been acquired before the war. Some appeared in purchase records. Others came directly from confiscated property. The essential question is not simply whether money changed hands. It is whether the former owner was free to refuse. In occupied Paris, Göring received privileged access to artworks processed at the Jeu de Paume. The museum had been transformed into a sorting and registration center for property confiscated primarily from Jewish collectors and dealers. Paintings arrived from homes, bank vaults, and storage locations. They were unpacked, measured, photographed, and assigned inventory numbers. Groups of works were then arranged for Göring's inspection. Allied investigators later documented at least 12 visits by Göring to the Jeu de Paume during 1941 and another 5 during 1942. He did not arrive as a legitimate customer. The original owners were absent because the state had already removed their protection and control. Göring entered after the confiscation. He selected from the results. Göring did not build the collection alone. He depended upon professional advisors, dealers, and Nazi cultural officials. Bruno Lohse became one of his principal representatives in Paris. Lohse worked within the ERR confiscation operation and helped identify objects that might interest Göring. Walter Andreas Hofer served as a leading advisor and manager of the collection. Dealers across occupied Europe located paintings, arranged purchases, and organized exchanges. Their expertise gave plunder the appearance of ordinary art dealing. A confiscated painting could pass through an advisor, receive an invoice, and enter Carinhall looking like a conventional acquisition. The paperwork did not necessarily reveal the coercion that came before it. Some artworks connected to Göring were described as purchases, but a receipt cannot answer every ownership question. Was the seller Jewish or otherwise persecuted? Had the property already been placed under Nazi administration? Could the owner reject the offer safely? Was the payment deposited into an account the owner could not use? Was the sale necessary to finance escape? A transaction can have a signature and still be coercive. Modern provenance researchers therefore examine the entire transfer, not only the final invoice. The collection also exposed a contradiction in Nazi cultural policy. The regime publicly condemned modern art as degenerate. Modernist artists and museums were attacked. Thousands of works were removed from German public collections. Yet condemned art could still be valuable on international markets. Paintings rejected ideologically could be sold or exchanged for the old masters preferred by senior Nazi collectors. Publicly, the regime called the works corrupt. Privately, it used them as currency. Ideology determined what could be celebrated. Profit determined what could still be traded. At Carinhall, the objects were transformed into a monument to Göring himself. The estate was a home, hunting retreat, political stage, and private museum. Foreign guests and senior officials entered rooms designed to display wealth and authority. Once a painting reached the wall, the earlier owner could disappear from view. The family home was gone. The confiscation code was hidden. The transport record sat in a file. Visitors saw a masterpiece and the man who now possessed it. They did not necessarily see the people from whom it had been taken. This is why the story of Göring's collection should never become a tour of his taste. The most important question is not what he admired. It is how he gained control of it. By 1945, Nazi Germany was collapsing. The art at Carinhall was packed and transported south. Objects were dispersed across railway cars, buildings, and storage locations in the Bavarian Alps. Göring ordered Carinhall destroyed before Soviet forces reached it. The estate disappeared. Much of the collection did not. Allied forces recovered large groups of objects around Berchtesgaden and Unterstein. The discovery was not the end of the investigation. Each object had to be photographed, catalogued, and connected with its earlier owners. Recovered objects were taken to Allied collecting points, including Munich and Wiesbaden. There, specialists attempted to reconstruct their histories. A painting might carry several numbers: a family inventory number, an ERR code, a Göring collection number, an Allied property card number. Researchers compared these marks with confiscation files, photographs, dealer records, and claims from survivors. Many works were returned. Others remained unidentified or disputed. Recovery meant locating the object. Restitution meant returning it to the lawful owner. The two were not the same. Today, the records of Göring's collection allow researchers to examine the history of individual paintings, sculptures, furniture, and decorative objects. The collection no longer exists as Göring intended. Its records remain evidence. Hermann Göring used power to turn persecution into private prestige. Carinhall displayed the collection. The archives reveal how it was assembled. Behind every inventory number is a question. Who owned this object before Göring? How did that person lose control of it? And was it ever returned? In the next episode of Plundered, we investigate another collection building operation, Hitler's planned museum in Linz. The museum was never built, but thousands of objects were gathered for it. This is Plundered, an investigation into Nazi looting and the search for justice.